Assalamu alaikum. My apologies for not being there in person for the Emerge conference, but I hope that this recording will still stimulate some discussion, and you're always welcome to get in touch with me later as well. So I've linked my website there in case you'd like to remain connected and learn more about my work. So when talking about climate change in Pakistan, the most significant issue is water. So climate change, of course, is going to change average temperatures, and that is going to change rainfall patterns. It's going to lead to glacial melting, and it's going to lead to some level of sea level rise. And all of those factors in the context of Pakistan are going to be linked to potential increase in emergencies and disasters of various kinds, and they're all linked in some way to water. So, in order for us to appreciate climate change in Pakistan, the simplest and direct way is to focus on water and water related hazards. So, here we've got a map of the major river basins in Pakistan. Of course, the Indus dominates. It is the hydrological artery of our country. And of course, it's a very complicated riparian system geopolitically because the headwaters are in other neighboring countries with whom we may not always have the best relations. Now, of course, we do have the Indus Waters Treaty that was set up, but the challenge is that the Indus Waters Treaty was established at a time when climate change was not on the radar in terms of geopolitical issues. The World Bank helped to negotiate the treaty. The United States government was very actively involved, including the Tennessee Valley Authority, but climate change was not at all an issue being recognized globally by these institutions. Now it is. It is recognized by the World Bank as well as by the United States government. And so, what I would argue is that the Indus Waters Treaty needs to be renegotiated with the context of climate change and disaster management in this particular day and age. We need to revisit the way in which the treaty should be considered as an ecological management tool and not just a way to divide up the water to prevent conflict. We need to, of course, prevent conflict, but we need to do it with a much more systems oriented view rather than just by dividing the rivers, as was the case with the Indus Waters Treaty approach. So, a key feature of the treaty that is useful is the data sharing that was enshrined in some of the documents. This could be a starting point since this conference is related to university professionals and doctors and medical professionals. I would say particularly the importance of data and how data is shared is something we should consider. And here I've just laid out the kind of geospatial data that should be considered in this regard. So we should think about the ways in which land cover change data and higher resolution, especially of geographic information systems data, is shared in revisions to the Indus Waters Treaty within. Now, if we focus specifically on one case within the Indus Basin more broadly, there is an opportunity for what we call science diplomacy, especially with our neighboring countries, Afghanistan and India. And this is where especially the diaspora community of Pakistanis who live abroad can play a more constructive role in lobbying for some of these kinds of efforts where you do have expatriates from Afghanistan and India living as well. And so basically the Neelam Jhelum river system and the Kabul River tributaries, which are going to flow into the broader Indus Basin, they can provide us with a way to consider track to science diplomacy. And if we were to share data across these two river systems, particularly, and this is something that has been suggested also by my friend and colleague Asim Zia at the University of Vermont. Who is directing the Institute for Environmental Diplomacy and Security there. that I had started earlier on when I used to be based in Vermont. And it's an important area that deserves much greater attention. There is actually an opportunity here to use data sharing for science diplomacy that will actually help to resolve some of these conflicts and build trust. It's also important to note that within the Foreign Office in Pakistan, there is currently a science diplomacy desk, and there have been efforts made to raise the platform of science within the Foreign Office. So that's an important positive side on our own domestic front that we should be willing to further engage with. It's also important to note that while geospatial data from satellites and aerial photographs and so on can be important, there are certain kinds of data where you need on-the-ground access. And so local and provincial governments and state governments' involvement is going to be crucial in this regard. So this is not just something which can be done by the Foreign Office. It needs to be something that is managed at the local level, and especially from the point of view of emergency response, that local level data is going to have much higher granularity to be able to consider what are the higher risk areas for flooding and other kinds of disasters long term. Now, Pakistan is also a member of an international organization called ICIMOD, the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, which is based in Kathmandu, Nepal. And this is a unique organization that was set up several decades ago by donors, especially European donors, to help the Himalayan countries manage their environment in a more sustainable way. And currently, ISI Mode has a massive partnership network. Some of these organizations are noted here with their logos. And Pakistan, through its membership in ISI Mode, should try to leverage this matter and work more coherently moving forward as well. Now, USAID actually tried to engage on a project with EC Mode, particularly in Pakistan, which was focused on managing disasters and looking at how data can be shared. And this is a diagram which shows you this project that was put forward about a decade ago. And there are several such efforts which can be further developed and enhanced through existing organizations in Pakistan, like, for example, WWF, which has a fantastic portfolio of programs through the Green Climate Fund. For example, the Recharge Pakistan program, which is aimed at trying to find ways of channeling water during high flooding events and taking them to existing basins rather than building new dams to contain some of these kinds of flows. These are all very positive signs, and such donor-driven projects should be further developed with local partners as well. Another wonderful organization that Pakistan used to be a member of, but is no longer a member of, partly due to shortage of funds, is the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. And this is a great example of data diplomacy that can help in disaster management as well as preventing conflict. And in fact, IASA, as the acronym stands for, is an example of how during the height of the Cold War, the environment was used as a means of reducing conflict through science. IASA was established in 1974, and here you have a photograph of an American scientist and Soviet scientist chatting collectively based on this scientific organization's mandate. And Pakistan actually was an active member until recently. So I'm hopeful that this can be reinvigorated. And there are some positive signs that this may well happen. Um, IASA's network is expanding. As you can see, India is a member. Unfortunately, as I said, we have lost our membership. Now, the good news is that I did read in the news earlier this year that there has been a meeting between Ambassador Aftab Ahmed Khokhar and the director of IASA. and that there may well be an opportunity for Pakistan to re-engage with IASA, because IASA is at the forefront of scenarios that are being developed around climate change, both on the natural science level as well as on the social science level in terms of vulnerability, hazard assessment, and so on. So if we can be at the front foot there, we can really see an impact at the international level as well. Pakistan is also bidding to join BRICS Plus, and science diplomacy can be a way for us to make our case to join BRICS. And in fact, Nature published an editorial a few years ago where it was noted that BRICS nations are collaborating on science, but they need a bigger global platform. And so having countries like Pakistan join that can actually help them develop that. And I would hope that this can also be another strategic reason for us to engage in this regard. Now, the pandemic itself, unfortunately, since this is an audience with several doctors and medical professionals, was a missed opportunity in many cases that the world was not able to come up with a coherent agreement that could deal with the issues like disaster preparedness, which could have also helped with climate change related disasters, because then we would have at least had some infrastructure of building trust and communicating around these issues. Um, there are some existing agreements through UNESCO, but they're largely ceremonial. And I think it's very important that we should develop these further through other venues, whether it's through BRICS Plus, the G20, of which Pakistan is not a member, but can certainly have some observer status because of its demographic size. And there can be a much better interface with other UN agencies as well. Geopolitics has also impacted science research networks around climate change, and this is just a chart which is showing the level of collaborations on papers between the United States, which is the world's largest research um, uh, producer in terms of papers and the related research productivity, but it shows the collaboration the US has had with Europe, and China was also a major contributor. But this is an area too which we need to work on so that there's much better network collaboration with other countries around science as well. Finally, I would say that we need to work on environmental and ecological literacy. And that is one of the reasons I wrote this book titled Earthly Order: How Natural Laws Define Human Life, to give people foundational learning around how the laws of nature confine us in terms of dealing with planetary problems like climate change. The motivator for this book for me was a realization that many of our students, particularly in developing countries, do not have that foundational learning. And so this book particularly is a labor of love. All my royalties are being donated for environmental education programs in Pakistan. The book was published by Oxford University Press in the UK and the US, but there is a Pakistan edition as well, which OUP has published, and it is available at relatively low cost. And as I said, all royalties will be donated for environmental education programs through various non-profits in Pakistan. And I was very pleased that a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry actually wrote such a supportive endorsement of the book. And I do hope that this will then further elaborate on some of the points I've made here as well. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to engaging with you online and hopefully visiting Karachi in the near future on future events.